I never believed in fairy tales, but I thought I had one. At least, until the day I overheard him say the words that shattered me. She means nothing to me. His voice was cold, detached just like the man I had fallen for. The man I had given everything to. I stood frozen outside his office, my fingers gripping the edge of the doorframe as my heart pounded. The air in the hallway felt suffocating, thick with the scent of betrayal. I needed a convenient wife, and she fit the role. His chuckle was low, dismissive, like my existence was nothing more than a business transaction. Love? Don't be ridiculous. She was naive enough to believe it. I felt my knees weaken. The man inside that office, Alexander Graves, the ruthless CEO, the untouchable billionaire, was my husband. And I was the woman he never loved. I should have barged in, confronted him, screamed, cried something, but I didn't. Instead, I turned and walked away, my body numb, my mind racing. If he thought I was nothing, I'd show him what nothing felt like. Because from this moment on, I wasn't his obedient little wife. I was going to make the Heartless CEO beg for my touch. My name is Elena Carter, and for the past 2 years, I've been the perfect wife to Alexander Graves, the man everyone feared, admired, and envied. Our love story had been anything but ordinary. I was an ordinary woman, working as a corporate lawyer, determined to carve a place for myself in a world dominated by power-hungry men. Then, like a storm, Alexander entered my life. He was everything I wasn't. Ruthless. Cold. Calculated. He didn't ask for things, he demanded them. And yet, when he pursued me, it felt different. People called him heartless, but when he looked at me, I saw something else, something deeper. Or at least, I convinced myself I did. Our courtship was quick, intense. A whirlwind romance filled with stolen kisses in marble hallways, whispered promises between silk sheets, and grand gestures that left me breathless. He made me believe I was special, that I wasn't just another piece in his carefully constructed empire. Then he proposed. It wasn't the kind of proposal most women dreamt of, no candlelit dinners or heartfelt confessions. Instead, he slid a diamond ring across a sleek black table in his office and said, "Marry me." I should have questioned it. The lack of emotion, the transactional nature of it all. But I was already too deep, too in love with the enigma that was Alexander Graves. So, I said yes. I became Mrs. Graves, the wife of a billionaire, the woman who had everything. Or so I thought. For 2 years, I played my role perfectly. The doting wife. The one who smiled at charity galas, draped in designer gowns. The one who kept his house in order, who waited for him in our massive penthouse with dinner he never ate. He was always busy, always consumed by his empire. At first, I told myself it was normal, that he was just the kind of man who didn't express love in traditional ways. But deep down, I had always felt the distance. The way he never looked at me the way a husband should look at his wife. The way he never held me longer than necessary, never whispered words of affection unless we were in public. I ignored the signs. I told myself love wasn't always passionate, that sometimes it was quiet, steady. But now I knew the truth. I was nothing to him, a convenient wife, a pawn in whatever game he was playing. And the worst part, I had let it happen. I had handed my heart to a man who never wanted it. But if Alexander Graves thought I would remain his silent, obedient wife, he was mistaken. Because the woman he took for granted was gone. And the new me? She was going to make him suffer. I had been naive, blind, foolish. For 2 years, I convinced myself that Alexander was simply distant, not unloving. That his late nights at the office, his cold kisses, his clipped responses weren't signs of something darker. But that illusion shattered the moment I overheard him say those 6 words. She means nothing to me. I should have confronted him then and there. Should have stormed into his office, demanded an explanation, demanded to know why he had deceived me. But I didn't. Instead, I did something I had never done. Before I stayed silent. I walked away, heart hammering, mind racing, and did what any woman in my position would do. I searched for the truth. For the first time in our marriage, I started paying attention. Really paying attention. And that's when I noticed it. The inconsistencies. The small hidden cracks in the perfect world I had built around us. The way his phone was always face down. The way he'd disappear for hours, never bothering to offer an excuse. The way his schedule, once so predictable, had started shifting in ways that didn't add up. I told myself I was overthinking. That maybe I was seeing things that weren't there. Until that night. The night that changed everything. It was almost 11 p.m. when I decided to leave the penthouse. Alexander was supposedly still at work, buried in meetings with foreign investors. But something inside me refused to believe it. So, I did what I had never done before. I followed my instincts. I took a cab to his office, my heart pounding the entire way. The city lights blurred past, my mind racing through 100 different scenarios. Maybe I was wrong. Maybe he really was working late. Maybe the moment I stepped into the building's lobby, my stomach twisted. It was empty. No bustling assistants, no late-night security details, no sign of the man who claimed to be buried in work. Panic gripped my chest, but I forced myself to breathe. Think, Elena. If he's not here, where is he? And then it hit me. A week ago, I had overheard his secretary, Lauren, confirming a private dinner reservation at the Orion, a five-star restaurant known for its discretion. At the time, I had assumed it was for a business deal. But now I wasn't so sure. I hailed another cab, my fingers tightening around the leather of my clutch. I didn't know what I expected to find. I just knew that I had to know. The Orion was dimly lit, draped in an air of exclusivity. The maitre d' greeted me with a polite smile, assuming I was just another guest, but I barely heard him. My pulse roared in my ears as my eyes scanned the room. And then I saw him, Alexander, sitting at an intimate corner table, sipping a glass of wine. But he wasn't alone. A woman sat across from him. She was stunning dark red lips, sleek black dress hugging her curves, blonde hair cascading over her shoulders in effortless waves. But it wasn't her beauty that made my chest tighten. It was the way he looked at her. The way he leaned in slightly, a ghost of a smirk playing on his lips. The same smirk I had once believed was reserved for me. The way his fingers trailed lazily along the rim of his glass casual, unhurried, as if he had no reason to be cautious. As if he had nothing to hide. Something inside me cracked. I could have walked away. Could have turned on my heel and left before he saw me. But I didn't. Instead, I moved forward, every step echoing like a gunshot in my ears. And just as I reached their table, Alexander's gaze flicked up. For the first time in years, I saw something in his eyes that I had never seen before. Surprise. I expected him to flinch, to look guilty, to scramble for an excuse, but Alexander Graves did none of those things. He merely leaned back in his chair, regarding me with unreadable eyes, his fingers still lazily tracing the rim of his wineglass. The woman across from him, this stunning, polished stranger, shifted uncomfortably, her gaze darting between us. A slow smirk curled at his lips. "Elena," he said, voice smooth as silk. "Didn't expect to see you here." I felt the words like a slap. Didn't expect to see me here? That's what he had to say? No denial, no explanation, no attempt to soften the obvious betrayal? My heart pounded so loudly I could barely hear myself think. I had so many questions, but they all lodged in my throat. Was I imagining things? Was this just a business dinner? Was I overreacting? No. The way he was sitting. The way his body angled slightly toward her. The way his fingers rested on the stem of his glass. Casual, at ease, completely unaffected by my presence. This was not a business dinner. I swallowed, trying to keep my voice steady. Who is she? His smirk deepened, and he tilted his head as if amused. The woman tensed, clearly uncomfortable. Alexander, maybe we should... He held up a hand, silencing her effortlessly. His eyes never left mine. She's not important. I sucked in a sharp breath. Not important? Then why was she here? Why did he look so relaxed with her? My hands clenched into fists at my sides. My body screamed at me to demand answers, to cause a scene, to break something, anything, just to make him feel an ounce of the chaos raging inside me. But I didn't. Because in that moment, as I looked at him, something inside me shifted. I realized the truth. I could scream, cry, beg for an explanation, but it wouldn't matter. Alexander Graves was a man who didn't make mistakes. He did everything with calculated precision, which meant this wasn't an accident. He wanted me to see this. He wanted me to know. The realization settled in my chest like ice, spreading through my veins, numbing the raw pain threatening to consume me. I had been so stupid. 2 years of my life wasted on a man who saw me as nothing more than a convenience, a placeholder. And he wasn't even sorry. If anything, he looked bored. My vision blurred at the edges, but I refused to let the tears fall. Not here. Not in front of him. Not in front of her. I forced my lips into a tight smile. I see. Alexander raised a brow, as if expecting something more, a reaction, an outburst, anything. But I wouldn't give him the satisfaction. I turned on my heel and walked away. Not because I was weak, but because I was done. I didn't cry that night. I sat in the back of a cab, staring out at the glittering skyline, my hands clenched so tightly in my lap that my nails dug into my skin. I should have been heartbroken. Should have been consumed by grief. But all I felt was cold, numb. By the time I stepped into our penthouse, my mind was already made up. I wouldn't beg for an explanation. I wouldn't waste another second being the pathetic wife waiting for a man who had never truly been mine. I would leave. But Alexander Graves wasn't the kind of man you simply walked away from. No, if I wanted out, I needed leverage, something to tip the scales in my favor. And I was going to find it. The next morning, I called in sick to work. Not because I needed time to grieve, but because I had work to do. I had spent the last 2 years playing the role of the devoted wife, ignoring all the little red flags I should have questioned sooner. But now, with my eyes wide open, I started seeing things I had overlooked before. I began digging. First, through his financial records, he always assumed I wasn't interested in the business side of things, so he never bothered to hide anything from me. At first, nothing seemed out of the ordinary. But then, I found something strange, a private account. One I had never seen before. Millions of dollars quietly funneled into it over the last 3 years. But it wasn't the money that caught my attention. It was the name attached to the account, Sophia Laral. I froze. The woman from last night. I had assumed she was just some passing affair. Another nameless woman who had caught Alexander's interest. But this wasn't just an affair. This was something more. Why was he sending her so much money? What was she to him? A mistress? A business associate? Or something far, far worse? My pulse thundered in my ears as I kept digging. My fingers trembled as I typed her name into a private investigator's database, using every legal loophole I knew from my work as a corporate lawyer. And then I found it, a birth certificate, and attached to it a child, a little girl, 5 years old. My breath caught in my throat. I felt like the ground beneath me had disappeared, like the air had been sucked from my lungs. 5 years. Alexander and I had been together for 2. Which meant my husband had a child. With another woman. And he had been hiding it from me all this time. I covered my mouth, a choked sound escaping my lips. My fingers trembled over the screen as I stared at the little girl's name. Amelia Laurent. She had his last name. And yet, no one in his world, his business partners, his so-called friends, had ever spoken of her. Had ever acknowledged her existence. Because he had buried the truth. Because he had been living a double life. And I had been nothing more than a fool caught in the middle. My entire body shook. But not from sadness. No. This time, it was rage. This wasn't just betrayal. This was a game. A cruel, calculated deception. And if Alexander thought he could keep me in the dark, use me, discard me like I meant nothing, then he had no idea who he had just crossed. Because I wasn't just going to leave. I was going to destroy him. I sat in the dimly lit living room, the glow from the city skyline casting long shadows across the sleek, modern furniture. A glass of wine rested untouched on the coffee table, my fingers lightly tracing the edge of a manila folder beside it. Inside lay the truth. A birth certificate. A name. A secret Alexander Graves had hidden for 5 years. A daughter. His daughter. And not with me. The click of the penthouse door unlocking echoed through the silent space. My pulse remained steady, my expression unreadable as Alexander stepped inside. He was still in his tailored suit from work, his tie slightly loosened, exhaustion lining his sharp features. He barely glanced at me as he walked toward the bar. "You're up late." His voice was as smooth as ever, as if nothing had changed. As if he wasn't a liar. As if I hadn't spent the entire day uncovering a deception so deep it made me question everything I thought I knew about him. I reached for the folder, my fingers tightening around the edges. "I found something interesting today." He poured himself a drink, not even sparing me a glance. "Oh?" I tossed the folder onto the counter between us. It landed with a sharp slap against the marble. "Go ahead," I said, my voice eerily calm. "Open it." For the first time that night, he hesitated. A flicker of something wariness crossed his face. Slowly, he set his glass down and reached for the folder, flipping it open. The moment his eyes landed on the birth certificate, his entire body stiffened. Silence. Then, a slow, measured exhale. He closed the folder and set it aside, finally meeting my gaze. "Where did you get this?" His tone was careful now. Controlled. I let out a humorless laugh. "That's all you have to say?" I stood, my heart pounding, my anger barely contained beneath the surface. "You have a child, Alexander, a 5-year-old daughter, and you never told me." His jaw clenched. "It's not what you think." I took a step closer, my voice sharp. "Really? Because what I think is that I've been married to a man who built his life on lies." His lips pressed into a thin line. "Elena, this is complicated." "No." I cut him off, my hands shaking. "It's not complicated. It's simple. You hid an entire child from me. You made me believe I was the only woman in your life. And the entire time, you were funneling money to Sophia Laurent and—" His expression darkened at the mention of her name. "Be careful, Elena." I scoffed. "Or what? You'll lie to me some more?" He let out a slow breath, running a hand through his hair. "I didn't tell you because I had my reasons. Your reasons?" My voice cracked. "Do you even hear yourself? You made me feel like a fool, Alexander. You let me believe we were building a life together while you were secretly taking care of another woman and your daughter." His eyes flashed with something guilt, frustration. I didn't care. "Say something," I demanded, my voice rising. "Tell me why. Tell me how you looked me in the eye every single day and pretended." My breath hitched. Pretended that I mattered. His expression hardened. "You do matter." I laughed bitterly. "No, I mattered when it was convenient for you. When I was the perfect wife, the obedient partner, the woman who didn't ask questions." A tense silence stretched between us. Then, he spoke. "Sophia was a mistake." My chest tightened. He ran a hand over his face, exhaling heavily. It was before you. A long time ago. I didn't know about Amelia until she was already born." His eyes met mine, cold and distant. By then, it was too late. Too late? A wave of nausea rolled through me. Too late for what? To be honest with me? To tell me the truth instead of making me feel like an idiot? He took a slow step forward. "Elena." I shook my head, stepping back. "Don't." The silence stretched again, thick with unspoken words. Then he said something that nearly brought me to my knees. "I never planned to love you." The breath rushed from my lungs. "I married you because it made sense," he continued, his voice quiet but sharp, like a blade sinking into my skin. "You were the perfect choice. Smart, independent. Someone who wouldn't demand too much. Someone who wouldn't complicate things. I felt like I had been punched in the gut. But love? He exhaled. That was never supposed to happen. I swallowed hard, my nails digging into my palms. And yet, you let me believe it did. He didn't deny it. That was what broke me. Not the affair. Not the child. But the fact that I had never really had him at all. I lifted my chin, forcing back the tears threatening to spill. You know what, Alexander? My voice was eerily steady. For years you controlled everything. This marriage, my heart, my choices. But not anymore. His gaze sharpened. What are you saying? I let out a slow breath, a bitter smile forming on my lips. I'm leaving you. For the first time since this confrontation began, his expression changed. He tensed, his grip on the counter tightening. You're overreacting. I let out a small laugh. Overreacting? No, Alexander. I'm finally thinking clearly. I turned, heading toward the bedroom. Elena. His voice was sharp now. Uncertain. I ignored him. I had spent too long waiting for him to love me. Too long accepting crumbs of affection, believing they were enough. But I wasn't that woman anymore. I wasn't going to beg him to care. And as I grabbed my suitcase and walked out that door, I didn't look back. Not even when I heard the sound of glass shattering behind me. Because for the first time in this marriage, it was him who was losing me. The moment I stepped out of the penthouse, a strange sense of clarity washed over me. For years, I had been trapped in Alexander's carefully curated world, believing in a love that had never truly existed. But now, as the cool night air kissed my skin, I realized something. I was free. The city stretched before me, bright lights and endless possibilities waiting just beyond the pain that still lingered in my chest. I hailed a cab, sliding into the back seat as the driver glanced at me through the mirror. Where to, miss? I hesitated for only a second before answering. The Laurent Hotel. I had booked a room earlier, long before confronting Alexander. Somewhere deep inside, I had already known I wasn't coming back. The drive was silent, but my mind was racing. Every memory, every moment I had spent believing in him, felt like a cruel joke now. When I reached my suite, I collapsed onto the bed, staring at the ceiling. I should have felt broken. But instead, all I felt was emptiness. For the first time in years, there was no Alexander Graves dictating my life. No waiting for his attention. No wondering if I was enough. The next morning, my phone buzzed relentlessly. Alexander. I didn't answer. By noon, there were messages. Where are you? Come home, Elena. We need to talk. I let them pile up, unread. Then, at exactly 3 p.m., my doorbell rang. I knew before I even opened it. He was standing there, looking like a man on the edge. His usually perfect suit was slightly wrinkled, his tie undone, the sharp confidence in his eyes replaced by something unfamiliar desperation. Elena. His voice was low, raw. Come home. I crossed my arms. Home? I let out a bitter laugh. You mean the place where you spent years lying to me? His jaw clenched. I made mistakes, but that doesn't change the fact that you belong with me. I tilted my head, studying him. Tell me something, Alexander. If I hadn't found out about your daughter, would you have ever told me? A flicker of hesitation. Just for a second. And that was my answer. I stepped back. I don't belong to you anymore. His entire body tensed. You don't mean that. I let out a slow breath. I do. For years, I had been nothing more than a carefully placed piece in his little wife who fit the role he needed. But I wasn't that woman anymore. I was done being second to his secrets, done waiting for love that would never come. I'm divorcing you, Alexander. His face paled. Elena. I shook my head. No, you made your choice, now I'm making mine. For the first time since I had met him, Alexander Graves was powerless. And I was walking away with my head held high. As I shut the door, a strange sense of peace settled over me. Because for the first time in a long time, I was finally choosing myself.